Hello, everyone. Madeline Dale here with the Chapter Goddess, and I have a fantastic author for you guys to check out today. We've been on a couple of panels and whatnot together, and he's got a great sense of humor and some amazing books that he's going to tell us about. So, David, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and about your YouTube channel and your books.
Okay, that's a lot to tell people about. Let me just try and...
That's true. We've got plenty of time, though.
It's not very often people have actually said that I've got a good sense of humor. So thank you for that. I thought that I did, but then no one seems to agree. So who knows? So I'm David Green. I live in Ireland. I am Irish, kind of. I'm also English. I grew up in Manchester in the UK to Irish parents, and now I live in Ireland. I live in Galway on the west coast, where it is quite rainy, pretty much 300 days a year. We have a week when it's nice, and then it's raining pretty much after that. I think we've had that week already. Actually, it was nice last week, so I think we're done for the year. And I write nowadays. I write mainly just fantasy novels. I did do quite a lot of short stories and stuff like that in different genres when I was kind of just starting out and trying to figure out what to do with this writing thing. It's like, I've written a book, but I don't know what to do next. And the book I wrote wasn't even fantasy or horror or anything. It was a crime novel. And I was like, what shall I do? I write, I have two series that I'm currently working on. One is dark epic fantasy, which is the picture from behind me here is one of the main characters from that book. And I have an urban fantasy noir, which is very detective pulpy kind of thing, but it's also fantasy as well. And as you said, I have a YouTube channel called The Worlds of David Green, because I could think of no other name for it. And on that, I obviously do some of my own things, and I have a Wheel of Time show on there as well with another author. But I also interview wonderful authors like yourself on there as well, which is great fun. It's always great talking to other authors and kind of seeing their point of view on things and how they kind of got about and how I'm always fascinated with work processes, so I love to find out how people cope with writing.
That is a good description of it. And it actually sets the field for the next question I have for you. How do you manage your writing schedule having kids? Well, a son, you just have one, right?
Yeah, he's just one. He's 4. He's just turned 4, and he is autistic as well. So it's I think that's a good thing in a way for both of us, because we both like routines. So it's very, very good that we kind of be like, we're doing this now, and this is what we're doing. I am very, very routine driven. And so he is at preschool 5 days a week, which is like 9 till 12. So after I take him there and get back home, I have like 2 hours, 50 minutes where I can kind of do things. So I have that time. And then when he goes to bed, I have that time as well. And then I have one day in the week where my parents look after him, where I can just kind of just go at it all day. And I can do that. I can sit there completely focused and write 12,000 words in a day and just keep going and just keep going and keep going. And next thing I know, it's dark outside, and I'm like, my God, where did the day go? Right. But I'm very kind of I'll work on multiple things at the same time. So I have like a spreadsheet with like where I'm up to, how many words I'm up to, what my word goal is for the whole thing, how many days I've got left to work on it, and then like an average of like what I need to do per day every time I sit down to work on it. And I always try and do a little bit more so I'm ahead in case I don't work on it. Or sometimes I just do the bare minimum and then just move on to the thing that I'm really kind of like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get back working on this one. So I do that quite a lot. But yeah, that's how I do it. I didn't always do it that way, and I kind of found myself really kind of getting like anxious about writing because I was like, I don't know where I am. I don't know if I'm behind or ahead on these things or what. So when I kind of like really put this like rigid structure on stuff, I showed someone my spreadsheet on my workflow Excel sheet one time, and they thought I was insane. Which I probably am, and it doesn't work for it. It wouldn't work for everyone. It works for me, and that's how I do it. And it's I just want to say fun. It's fun.
Can be. I mean, you got to do what works best for you, because I definitely could not do the Excel sheet. I have trouble keeping up with my word count in general, but I'm also like crazy parent chaos kind of stuff. Like I have so much to do just as you do. And it's just like that small window we all have. It's like, okay, let's not pull our hair out. Let's have another cup of coffee. We can do this.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And I think that's what it is. Like you say, like, we have that as parents, we have that like small window sometimes. And if you know that you've got that window there where it's like, well, nothing's going to come in and take away from this window time. It's like, I was kind of like, well, I'm trying to maximize this as much as possible. And and it kind of just, I've been doing that now for the last, probably for the last year, I'd say, like exactly the same kind of way. And it's, it works really well for me. Like, and I think I couldn't do it in a different way, because I think, as I say, I get very kind of like, I'd get very like, I need this structure, otherwise I can't do it.
That helps. What is your average word goal for the week?
For the week, let me see. Word goal for I've got them open in a different fact. I can tell you exactly what it is. So usually my word goal for a week is about 21,000 words.
A good goal.
Nice. And that's across a few different things. I ghostwrite as well, so I have like clients for that. So I kind of like, and this is why I kind of started really kind of thinking, well, the structure might work, because like I have like set deadlines for these people where it's like, I have to have this done.
Yeah.
Otherwise they'll be very angry at me, and I don't like it when people are angry at me. So I'll be like, I'll do it. Don't worry. But yeah, so my word goal is usually about 21,000, but like the week before last, I did 29,000. So
what is it like being a ghostwriter? Because I've never had anybody, I don't think I may have, but we haven't talked about it with any other people on the show. So tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, it's fun. I really enjoy it. It was one of those things where it was like, I was always kind of puzzled by it, but I taught some people that were ghostwriters, and I could always see what they would get out of it. Like, because obviously you get paid, so I can see what you get out of it, right? And but I was always like, I wonder what the other people get out of it, because they know they've not written this book, and right. And if people are saying, "I love your book," and I'll be like, "Well, yeah, thank you," but deep down they'd be like, I didn't write this book. And that's how I would be like. But then I kind of started looking into it, and I had a few people like approach me and ask if I would, and I didn't have the time to do it. And then I was working on a few of my own series at the time, getting them set up and everything, and doing a lot of background work on them. And then I just had some spare time, so I was talking to someone who does it through Fiverr, the app, and like, try it and see what you think. And I set up a profile, and a lot of this is review based, so obviously I had no reviews or anything, so it was like kind of slow at first, but then I started getting a few people. And what I realized, it was that you have a lot of these people that the English might not be the first language, but they want to write a book in English because that's the market, right? Or they might live in like the States, for example, but the grasp of the language isn't great, and they have this idea that they know they don't have the skill level for whatever reason to do it. So, and they might have like the idea of how to market this thing afterwards and how to do it and everything. So I picked up pretty quickly a series from someone who wanted a series of 7 done 80,000 words each. And we settled on a price, because I wasn't really kind of sure of what kind of price to kind of do for this kind of thing. I was like, I have no idea. But I was like, that's good. And this person, like, I don't know the name, I don't know who it is. It's all through the app, and it's all like regulated by Fiverr, so it's great. I think they book me and they pay for it, and then Fiverr holds this money until I deliver them the work, and then they release the money to me. So it's all this kind of way. But I was talking to them through the app, and they were like, "Well, I'm going to wait until all 7 are done and then get them edited from someone else. Obviously, they want to do it that way, and then do the covers, and then they're going to release it in box sets all at once on the Kindle Unlimited and advertise it and try and do it this way. And then like I have a few other things. So I've got quite a lot of reviews on it now. So I've got a few different clients on it. Some of them are series, some of them are one-offs, some of them are like big 100,000 word books, some of them are like 40,000 novellas, and there's always like a different kind of level that you're going into. Like one that I really enjoy working on is like I believe he is a writer himself, but he's working on another series and had this other idea that he couldn't put the time for what he wanted to do, and they're kind of like Conan-esque books. So I'm basically essentially doing the first draft of them, and then he's going back and kind of doing the second draft on them. But like, and that's great. And he comes to me with like a full outline chapter by chapter saying, this is what I want this to happen. This is the whole world build. And here's a map. Here's this, and this, and this. And it's like, just basically I just flesh it out from that. And then I have other people that are kind of like, I have an idea for a book and it's a paragraph. Right. And it's like, and which is also great because it's like, well, I'll do what I want then basically. As long as I'm doing this paragraph. And sometimes it's stuff that I wouldn't really work on myself. Like, it's some of it is like Fae Academy stuff, some of it is more romance heavy, some of it is more horror heavy and science fiction. And there's stuff that I like to read and I do have an interest in. But it wouldn't be necessarily stuff that I'd write myself. Like the kind of Conan-esque one is a lot kind of, I mean, my stuff, especially Empire of Ruin, is dark fantasy, but it's clean dark fantasy. There's in-world kind of swearing, there's violence, but it's not gratuitous, and there's romance, but there's not sex per se. Whereas in this one, there is, and so it's not something that I would write in my own work, but I can kind of just, if I had hair, I could let my hair down.
Let your beard relax more. There you go.
Beard relax. Yeah. So it's fun. So it's good on it. And what's great about it as well is because I'm kind of looking at, and some people it's quite collaborative, and it's great because I like working with people, and you kind of look at like how they're saying, well, I want the focus to be on this thing, whereas I might approach it and go, well, I'd really approach it this way. But then you kind of look at it from their point of view and say, well, that's interesting looking at this in this kind of way and everything like that. But then sometimes you get some people that are just like, this is exactly what I want. There's no wriggle room. Just do it. All right. And you just do it. It's a job. Right. So, it's interesting. One of those things, again, I don't think it's for everyone, because some people I've spoken to some people that are like, I couldn't do it because I would want to, if I didn't agree with something that was in the outline or whatever, I'd want to change it. Some people that you work for are okay with that, and some people aren't. So,
that is fascinating. Thank you for sharing about that, because I've always been curious about that personally. So I know a lot of viewers will find that information helpful too. So let's go into talking about your book, books. Let's talk about In Solitude's Shadow, book 1 of the Empire of Ruin. So on the cover, is that your main character?
Yeah, kind of. There's multiple POVs in it, but she is kind of central to everything that's going on.
So tell me a little bit about her, because she's on the second cover as well, Path of War.
She is, yeah.
So how many books are going to be in this series? Do you have that planned out?
Yeah. It's a kind of a spoiler having the same character on 2 books. It's like, this character's going to make it through this book. So there's going to be 4 in this one. It was originally so I'm kind of like half a plotter and half a pantser. Like so I kind of had the entire kind of arc for what I was thinking of as a trilogy at the time done. But then when I was doing the second book, Path of War, which ended up being quite a bit bigger in every single way, like it was just more like bigger stakes and bit longer length, more complex. I I set out and I was like, this will be 100,000 words when it started. Actually, no, it was 80,000 words when it started. Because like, that's the thing with Solitude Shadow. It's like 70,000. And so it's, for Epic Fantasy, it is a shorter Epic Fantasy, but that's by design because it was like, I wanted to kind of do this very, very tight story in the first book.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's like, it's building towards like a specific point. And so it was that by design, but I always knew the second one was going to be a bit bigger. So I was like, I'll aim for 80. And then I was kind of like doing the outline and doing this and doing this. And I was like, well, it'll be 100,000, I think. And I remember talking to my publisher, because I work with a small press, and I was like, it'll be 100,000, I think. And then I was getting through my outline pretty okay. Added a few little bits in there, went off on this big kind of adventure that Colleen, who is the character there, went on this big adventure that wasn't planned. There was this one line in the outline saying Colleen goes on a journey, and it was like turned into 25,000 word like mini story basically in the thing. And then when I came back to that, I was like, I still have like half of my outline left, and I'm up to 80,000 words in this book. So I was like, I'll just keep going and see. And I got to 100,000, and I was like, I'd say there's about 20,000 words still left in this book, right? And it ended up being 140,000 words. And I was like, you know what? There's too much story left to tell in just one book, unless the book is going to be about 250,000 words, which I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do this big jump and a big jump and a big jump. So I was like, I'm just going to do 4 books because I can kind of, I had some other ideas that I wanted to do with some other characters anyway that came up to me. And when I was writing the second book, I was like, I'll do 4. 4 sounds good. That's a nice box set. 4 in a box set. So it's nice. So I'll do that. So it's going to be 4 books, and that is certain for definite 4 books. And so Colleen is one of the main characters. She is a woman in her 30s that is estranged from her mother, who is in a place called Solitude. She's part of an order of Sparkers, which are basically a religious order that are magical people that for years have been very, very devout with their beliefs and are trained in terms of like healing and teaching and spreading the word of their god or ass. But they're also used as like support in war, where it would be kind of going in there and healing people and protecting people, which is why they're all trained with swords to defend themselves. But this empire that they live in is very, very based on war and warfare and trying to take over people's territories. So that they've been trying to push these Sparkers into more places where they're used as a weapon. So at the start of In Solitude Shadow, there's like the order of Sparkers is about to split. Basically, you got these people that are like newer generation that are like, yeah, we should be fighting these wars for our empire, and other people say, no, this isn't the way. And Colleen is kind of caught in between that a little bit. And her mother is up at Solitude, and she's estranged from her, and her mother is one of the other POV characters, and it's kind of explored from a kind of distance about what has happened between them, but there's a magical way in which they can talk to each other as well, which is great with fantasy because it's
like,
she's good, and she's very it's one of the things that I try and look at. Inherently she's a good person, and she does good things, but she's also complicit in the actions of this terrible empire that she's in, and this order, and she knows that what she is doing sometimes in the situations that she in is wrong, and she sympathizes with some of the things with some of the other people that she's fighting against. But so that's her journey, is to kind of see, to examine herself and say, well, why is it I am doing these things? And the way that she thinks about her mother, who they had this flashpoint that gets explored in the book as well. But we delve into that a lot more in the second book as well, which is where she, after what happens at the end of this book, is a real kind of turning point for her. So the reason she's on the cover is because she's the kind of emotional center of the book, I suppose, because there is another POV character as well who's very important. And Zana, her mother, is very, very important, but she kind of links all of them together.
Nice. I like that. And I like that you planned it as such, where she ties them all together. Because I feel like a lot of authors don't think that through very well sometimes. So go ahead and tell me about your detective book, The Devil Walks in Blood. Because you've mentioned this one on a panel we were on before, and I was kind of curious about it. So go ahead and tell me about that one.
So the Devil Walks Blood. So this is a guy called Nick Holleran is the main character. So it's written completely differently, right? It's a different kind of fantasy and everything. So like Empire of Ruin is like third person past tense. This is first person present. And it's so we're right with Nick the entire time, and so. So there's two books in this series. There's Dead Man Walking and The Devil Walks in Blood. But the Devil Walking Blood Special Edition, which is the one that's mainly out now, has got both of them combined because the first one was only a novella. So put them both in there. And then the second book, Devil Walks in Blood, literally takes place at the end of the first book's the final scene is the next scene, and then the second book it just goes straight on to it. So it's like it's more or less the same story. It's some people kind of say it's a bit like Dresden Files. Some people kind of say it's a bit like Hellblazer, like John Constantine and that sort of stuff. And then when it came out, lots of people were like, you must really like Supernatural. And I was like,
That's what I was thinking. It was Supernatural with the cover. So you read my mind.
Supernatural. And it does the thing with Dresden as well. Like, so when I wrote this first one, Dead Man Walking, I'd heard of Supernatural and I'd heard of Dresden, but I'd never watched Supernatural. I'd never read Dresden. So I did the first one, and then I was like, as a treat, I'm going to read Dresden Files, the first one, to see. And I read it, and I was like, this is a little bit similar. And I was like, oh no, people are going to think I've ripped this off. But then I read the next Dresden book, and it was went in a different direction to what I was going to do with The Devil Walks in Blood anyway. So I was like, that's fine. Because I was very kind of adamant at the start when I was creating this that like Nick isn't magical. He isn't a magical person. Like obviously Harry Dresden he's a wizard. Nick is just a regular guy, right? He's a private detective at the start of the story and all that kind of stuff. So that was one of the things that I was like, I have to kind of keep. There is magic in the world, and there is like it is a fantasy story, and there's all things, but he's just a normal person in a way. But where the supernatural things come in, and then I've started watching Supernatural. I started watching it about November. Just because people were like, you must like this because and then I was like, no, I've never watched it. But you should because you'd like it, especially after the Red Devil Walks in Blood. So I was like, okay. So I started watching it, and I'm up to season 8 now. So I've got like still 150 episodes left to go.
There's a lot. I haven't watched it all myself. I've only seen like episodes here and there. So I'm kind of with you like on that. So
yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah, it's good. I really enjoy it. Like I do really enjoy it. Like I'm well into it. I mean, I'm 8.5 seasons into it now, or 15. So I have to keep going. I can't just stop at 8.5 seasons. But it's so Nick is so the thing with Devil Walks in Blood and Hell in Haven, as it's called, is that in the first line of the first book, Nick gets killed. It's not a spoiler. It's even on the blurb, I think, that he gets shot by someone that he's tailing, and he as he's dying, he sees like light and everything. He's like, oh, heaven is real. Who knew? Because I'm an atheist, right? He's like, it's like I didn't believe in any of this stuff. And then he's being brought up to heaven, and then someone comes and resuscitates him, and he goes back into his body. And then when he kind of comes out of surgery and everything like that, he realizes that hell is also real, and we actually are living in hell. So Earth is hell, and all these kind of ghosts and demons and Bigfoot and vampires and everything you can think of, Lovecraftian cults, are all in hell as well, and they're all kind of hidden from just normal people. So he is like, first of all, he's like, well, I want to keep my nose clean because I know that heaven is real. I want to go to heaven when I die, so I don't want to do anything wrong. Obviously, it was okay to go there the first time. And then the second thing, because he's quite a curious kind of person, and he is a private detective, is that he's like, well, how can I make sure that I'm doing good? And it's like, I can help demons and ghosts and these other things to kind of see what it is they're sticking around for, unfinished business and so on and so forth. And then the third thing is like he wants to figure out why Earth is hell. Has it always been this way? And that's so like that's where, and then that's the start of the first story basically. And we go into kind of like personal kind of things, but it's very, very fast paced and it's very, very funny as well. Like it is very witty and because it's written in first person present, it's very, very always on the go. You're always learning new things, and he's kind of like giving us information, and he has like a very distinct sense of humor. But then the second book, I mean, the first book does deal with some heavy themes as well, and the second book does in particular. I mean, it's called The Devil Walks in Blood, and it's got very religious overtones, and as it would do if you're living in a place like this. And, you know, he's looking at cases like he's approached by a ghost that has been in his office for 5 years that doesn't speak, that just looks in the corner and doesn't turn around. And something happens at the end of the first book, and she turns around and says, I want you to find out who murdered me. And it was like back in the 1960s. So he starts investigating this thing, and it leads to all these different things that are going on. So it's really fun. I really like writing it. It's I do like one of the Empire of Ruin books, and I go back and do a Nick Halloran book. And the Nick Halloran books are shorter. They're a lot kind of easier to write, I suppose, because basically with the premise, I mean, it's real world. It's set in Oregon in America, which is a place I've never been to, but I've had this like fascination with. And I was going to set it in Portland originally, but I was like, I don't know it well enough to write about it, so I'm just going to create a city that's just next to Portland.
There you go. I mean, it works.
Yeah, so it's a lot easier to kind of write, because it's kind of with the premise there it's got, with like literally like one of the lines that he says in the very early in the first book is like, if you've read about it, it exists, like, you know. And every so often I can say like, well, does this exist? It's like, actually that's one of the few things that doesn't exist, right? As a joke. So I can kind of go anywhere I want with it, so it's really kind of fun to write in.
Sweet. So writing in first person and third person, how do you keep your mind like straight when switching back and forth between them?
You know, it does. Normally it's not a problem, but sometimes I do. I write by paragraph, so like I'll do a paragraph and I'll go back and re-edit it basically, and then go on to the next paragraph. I don't know why I do this. I just do. I don't know why. But so if I ever do that and switch out of tense, I catch it pretty quickly, and it only actually happens on my ghostwriting work because obviously with that I'll ask people like, how would you like it to be written? And some people, no one said second person yet, which I'm very thankful for, because I would hate to write that. I can't read it, and it's like I just can't. I won't be able to get my head around it. But sometimes people like first person, I do it like the Hunger Games, or do it like this or whatever. So like yeah, sometimes I do it on that, but I catch myself pretty quickly. But on my own series, I think Nick is such a distinctive voice in my head that I couldn't write it in a different way. Mm-hmm. I did actually try at one point to do first person past tense, and it just didn't feel the same. It was because I wrote Dead Man Walking as a novella, then I expanded it to put when I was putting it into Devil Walks in Blood, so it actually doubled in size. And I tried then when I was doing it, I was like, I'll go and do it in first person past and see. And it just didn't have the same feel. It had to be present. And then obviously with Empire of Ruin as well, because it is epic dark fantasy, just for me, I always feel that those, I mean, you can do first person ones, but for me, like I just think of third person whenever I think of that. So I don't really kind of trip up all that much with it. But yeah, the ghostwriting stuff sometimes I do. I'll do like a big paragraph, and then I'll be like, oh no, I've just done it in the wrong tense. I have to go back and redo all of that stuff.
I would have a hard time keeping it straight, I think, because I do a lot of my writing in first person, but I'm playing with kind of a small short story I'm doing for an anthology that's going to be in third person. So I'm like, gotta focus here. We're not going to edit on this for like 2 days while I finish this. So.
Yeah. No, it's fun. I mean, it's great. But there's pros and cons to both of them as well, like, you know, because that's the thing that sometimes can be a little bit frustrating when you work with both. Is like when I work on Nick and it's in first person, sometimes I'm just like, I'd love to just describe this thing over here, or just do this, but it's like he wouldn't know anything about it, so I can't.
Yeah.
Right? So I have to think of ways around it. Whereas like when we're working in third person, it'd be like, I'd love just to kind of have like a real in character commentary about this thing, but you can't do that either, right? You have to, because it is, you can be sat on someone's shoulder in third person, but you can't be inside the head.
That is true.
So like, you know, so there's always pros and cons with both, but I mean, it depends what kind of story you want to write as well.
Yeah, that's true. So what do you, okay, actually, which projects do you have coming out next? I was like, let me rephrase that because I know it's more than one. So.
Well, there's probably some that will come out that I don't know about. It's like, I always wonder one day if like I'll get something on Amazon and I'll start reading it and be like, hang on a minute, I think I wrote this.
It hasn't happened yet. Like,
not yet. No, I'd love it to happen, and to see if I didn't even. I'm really curious, like to know what they do with it afterwards, like how they edit it and all this kind of stuff, and if like I'd recognize any of it afterwards. Like, I'm sure I would, but who knows? But no, it's not happened yet. But my next book is Path of War, which is out in June the 18th, which it felt like a long way in the future, but it's like it's literally in 2 months. So it's like starting promoting it now. So yeah, that's the next one. I'm really, really excited to see what people think about it. I think it's, people seem to like Untitled Shadow. I think this is a step up from it. It's a lot, it's we get to see a lot more of what's going on in the world, and we get to get deeper into the characters and their motivations, and it's a lot darker than the first one as well. But there's a lot more adventure in it as well, which is something I wanted, because the first book is very much like a mission, I suppose, where people have got like, we have to do the mission, we have to go and do this, right? Whereas the second book, it's like there's a lot more adventure to it, and there's a lot more like people trying to figure out what it is to do next, and kind of jumping on doing reckless things that they shouldn't really be doing. So that one's out in June, and then I probably have 2 Nick Halloran books out before the end of the year. I think that's the plan anyway. Yeah,
that is awesome. I'm excited to see them come out because I feel like they're going to do really good. All right, go ahead and tell our viewers where they can find you and your work.
Okay, so the best place to find me is my website, which is davidgreenwriter.com. And that's got all my links in it and all my books. And join in. There's a newsletter on there as well. For joining the newsletter, you get a free short story collection of fantasy books, fantasy stories as well. So yeah, do that and let me know if you do. Let me know what you think.
Thank you so much. And guys, make sure you smash the like button below and subscribe to the channel to keep up with all the authors that are going to be on the Chapter Goddess channel. And leave a comment. Let us know what you think of the show. Leave us some questions if you want to ask authors specific things. I'm sure David and I are going to be on another panel together here pretty soon, especially with Go Indie Now. So, right?
I think probably next weekend. I
have to look. So, well, David, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll chat with you again soon.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.